We are live. Hello, everyone. Welcome. I am Nicole, and this is Chelle, and we are so excited that you're here. I'm going to do a little techie stuff to make sure we can see you. If you can see and hear us, please tell us and introduce yourselves.
This is so exciting.
I know. I'm really excited. Do you see how like Chelle and I match?
Totally matchy.
Cool. All right. So I'm just looking in over here. We have chat ready to go. We have some people joining us. The numbers are going up, so that's exciting.
Awesome.
And as you join, if you could just let us know who you are, introduce yourself. Let us know where you live, where you're calling in from, or not calling in from.
Where you're listening.
Yeah, your location. And yeah, what do you do? Oh, Sabrina says, hello, ladies. Yay, we can see people in the chat. Awesome. We're so excited to be here today with you. And really the reason why we wanted to do this webinar is because we get a lot of questions from clients that we work with on the agency side, and also service providers that are offering online business management services, project management services, virtual assistant services, that want to know more about project management, online business management, and really understanding on the client side, like, who do I need? And how do I need to be supported? And then from a service provider side, and Chelle, like, tell me if this is true for you too. It's very much like, what do I want to offer?
Totally. Absolutely. Number one question.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. So we have Tasha. Hello. Hey, Tasha. Oh, I'm so excited that you're here. Sabrina said the video on the page isn't working, but it is live on YouTube. Interesting. Can you try refreshing and then let me know if that is still true for you? And I guess like we can always just have people hop over to YouTube as well. But I do have some people saying that they can see and hear us, so that's good. But yeah, definitely let us know. Oh, same for me. Interesting. All right. So do you have like the chat open in Webinar Jam and then the video open in YouTube? Let us know. I think it's fine. Seems like you can still.
Hi,
Janet says, hi, ladies. Hello. Okay. Yes. Tried refreshing. Yep. I have both open. Okay. You know what? That's how we're going to do this, right?
We're rolling with YouTube.
Yeah. YouTube works for us.
Right.
So cool. All right. So thank you so much for setting aside some time today to be here with us. Ultimately, we want to do this so that people just have a better understanding of the different team roles and what each person does, and then talk a little bit more about project management and if it makes sense for you to offer it as a service provider, if you are a business owner, if it makes sense for you to bring on a project manager or to train somebody on your team to be a project manager, and just like bring some clarity around it. So I guess let's do a little bit of let's cover what we're going to talk about today so that you have a little bit of an agenda. I know that service providers sometimes appreciate an agenda. I know I do. So we're going to talk about really understanding what is the difference between an online business manager role and a project manager role. We're going to talk about how project managers, how they work on teams and how they can really bring a lot of value to teams, especially as they grow and as different and new projects come up. And then how you can get started either being a project manager or training somebody on your team to be a project manager. And as you're joining, if you have any questions or need some guidance when it comes to anything, really, like we're pretty much open books, please type it. Yeah, ask us, type it in the chat. We'll probably answer your questions towards the end. And if we're feeling good and it makes sense, maybe we'll just answer it as we go too. So, Shelly and I have an amazing relationship. We have had like the privilege of working with each other on some pretty awesome teams. And just for those of you that don't know me, I have a hiring and project management agency, and we help business owners who are launching courses, programs, podcasts, and really growing and scaling their businesses through project management and hiring support. And then I also do some mentorship around being on the team, being a service provider, and growing your business on that side as well. I help train project managers. It's something I'm super passionate about. That's why I have an agency. It's because I like to support other people in doing what it is that they love. And I am so happy to be doing this with you, Shelly. Would you like to just add a few words about what you do?
Well, first off, she's amazing at what she does, because I've had the privilege, like she said, of working with her in several different capacities. I actually own an online business management agency and do consulting work as well. So we take on clients and manage their businesses on the back end. But what I also do some consulting work where I will come in and fix a specific problem, and then I'm out of the business. Just like Nicole, I also do mentoring as well for those who are looking to either increase their virtual assistant business, their online business manager business. And I have actually worked with some other service providers in different fields and niches, just depending on what they're trying to build and scale in their own business.
Yeah, And so Shelly and I wanted to just like combine our knowledge and powers, because we have conversations all of the time, because we have worked together in so many different ways to really just open the door to our conversation that we've been having about project managers, about online businesses, about clients that we've worked with who need some like guidance and direction, and share it with you today and answer any questions that you may have. And also, like, we're so open to your point of view on this as well, because we all, as business owners, we are multi-passionate, and we all kind of bring extra experience and different experiences to the table. So we want you to chime in and tell us like how you feel and what you've experienced, so that we can really create a conversation around this. So let's talk about you for a minute. I want to just like make sure that you guys are in the right place. I have a sense that you do. From everyone I'm seeing in the chat box, I somehow know you in online. I've worked with some of you, so I'm so glad to see some friendly faces. And so this conversation is really for people who are thinking about maybe offering project management services. So maybe you're not a project manager and you're kind of thinking about it. It's for people who are not a project manager and like wondering if this might be for them. So just so I can make sure I'm explaining this right. So people who are not project managers that might want to be them, people who are project managers and kind of want to see what other projects they could be working on, what other team members they can be working with, and really understanding like this team dynamic, especially when it comes to working with online business managers as well. Or for business owners that need some guidance around who they need to hire next in their business to support them. And we want to cover some of like the misconceptions between online business management and project management and that sort of thing. So we're going to talk about how OBMs and PMs can actually work together so many times. Right, exactly. And we've had this conversation where it's like, sometimes people feel like they need to choose one or the other, which in some cases it's true, depending on where their businesses are, but they can also work together too. Mm-hmm. And what are the differences? And then managing projects and launches versus managing a business. Right. So like what goes into each, and should one person be doing both? So
we'll hold the answer to that question till later.
Yeah. So stick around.
Right.
The benefits of working with a project manager from a team member's perspective. So what does it look like to have a project manager on the team? And we had like this little questionnaire after you signed up, and we got some really great questions from people. And this was one that was a big one about like, I'm an online business manager, and like, when do we introduce a project manager into the team? So really getting clear on that. And then if it feels good to you, how you can incorporate project management into your business, whether you're a client wanting to bring on a PM or you're offering a service and want to maybe step into offering project management or adding it to your service offerings. Like, when do I do this? What's the right time? How will I know? Answering all of these questions. So let's dive in. And I just want to talk, I'd love to start with what is an online business manager and what is a project manager, so that we can kind of have a baseline understanding and can grow from there. So Chelle, do you want to talk a little bit about online business management and kind of what you see online business managers as and what project managers are, so that, again, that can kind of be our starting spot?
Sure. So it's so confusing, right? Everybody asks, what's the difference? Not only do the people like, you're on here because you're wondering, or clients ask all the time, well, which one do I need? And what do you do? And how do you answer that question? So an online business manager is the one that's literally managing the business. And when I mean the business, I mean financial stuff, could be working with their team, managing the pieces and parts of a strategy that aren't necessarily the implementation of those pieces. Usually there's team members on board that do the implementation, but they're managing the back end of a business. As you know, I work with clients all the time who are, when they're not in launch mode, they still have services that are happening on a day-to-day basis. They still have clients that are onboarding and offboarding, and there's day-to-day functions that need to happen. There's payment tracking and payment failures that need to happen. There's social media, and all of these pieces run that business day in and day out. And if the business owner is busy doing sales and doing some of the marketing, someone has to do all these other pieces. And they can either choose as the client to manage all the people that are doing it themselves, or when they get to a point where they're maxed out, they hire an online business manager to manage the pieces and parts for them so they can really focus on scaling at that point. And that's very different from a project manager who, from my perspective, comes in and manages a very specific strategy or a very specific launch. And they are, to me, project managers are literally the lifeline to getting something executed. Especially larger things like the launch of a podcast or the launch of a book or a program. There's so many things that have to be planned out in advance for a successful and seamless and quiet from the back end type launch, that there's no way from me doing it that I could manage on the same scale of a day-to-day basis also a launch without increasing my time dedicated to that client. So my specialty is here, and a project manager's specialty is here, and it works great.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. And same thing. So I have the same view and perspective. And I think what can sometimes happen is that business owners, and I honestly I mean, I'm a business owner myself and I have a team, and I've been confused. And, but it's kind of, I see a lot of people starting with one person, and it's like, they can do everything in my business. And I think that that's kind of where the confusion lies, or where the team breaks a little bit, where there are some problems, because just like business owners can't do everything themselves, same thing with a online business manager. It's impossible for one person to do everything. And so when the business manager is really responsible for the ongoing running of the business, for the vision of the business. You mentioned financials and just making sure that the day-to-day operations of working the business are in a good place, that is a huge focus for one person. And so when projects do come up, and this is what we see, and also when we're on a sales conversation with a potential client, that project managers come in when there's like something new that typically has a start and an end date. Like, so for a podcast, like it is something that can be ongoing, but there's a launch to it. So you're launching the podcast, it's something new. So typically what we will do coming in is map out the launch, make sure that the right team members are in place, and then set up some sort of like a batching schedule so that there can be that ongoing maintenance. And we might oversee that, or we might then pass it off to somebody else and then focus in on something new. So I think that the main message here is that there are ongoing day-to-day processes that need to happen to keep a business going. And that is like online business managers' realm. And then there are projects that come up that, and it may be something, some of the clients we work with, they're constantly doing new projects. So we are in their business long-term, but it's because they always have something new that they are launching or relaunching. And it doesn't necessarily have to be a launch of a course or a program. It can be other projects as well. I know a lot of people associate launching with course launches, which I totally get. And it could be something like a book launch, or they're doing a new YouTube show or something else. But again, it has that start and end date, and it's in addition to the day-to-day operations of the business. One thing that came up for me as you were talking is I think it might also be beneficial to explain the difference between a virtual assistant and an online business manager, because I know this is really a spot where some people get confused as well. Chelle, do you feel good about sharing more about your perspective around that?
Yeah, absolutely. I know that some of the ladies on this in this chat know my perspective very well. For those of you who don't, a virtual assistant is really a great taskmaster. They are great at checking off that to-do list, implementation, getting stuff done. An online business manager is really the person that's managing those things. So they're the ones that are seeing if all the resources are there for the job to get done. And then they're planning out the timeline that is expected for it to get done, and then checking in with those team members to see when it's done, and then overseeing and looking at the work that was completed to make sure it was done right. So there's someone kind of overseeing and managing the tasks that are getting done. And I hate doing the over under, because I don't really see that there's this major tier with virtual assistants being, below an OBM. Not at all. They're the ones getting the stuff done, and they're usually faster and better at it than we are. We're just good at taking the puzzle and taking all the pieces and putting them together and getting it done on a timeline.
I love that. And I think there's also something that comes up when it comes to like responsibility and ownership. So I think that everyone who's on a team needs to take full ownership over what they're doing. So if for some reason a challenge or a problem comes up, no matter if you're the one implementing or you're the managing or you're the one leading, like taking full responsibility over that. And what I see from an online business manager perspective and from a project manager perspective, it's really their job to figure out like what happened, what needs to be done differently next time, and what do we need to implement, and then communicating that to the team members. And that's where I kind of see it's not necessarily like an over under thing, but they're the ones that kind of have that bird's eye view. Right. For online business managers, it's like the business. For project managers, it's the project, and can really be the ones to dig in and figure out like, where did something fail or where did something go really well? And we want to continue doing that too. So,
and bottom line, the client is going to look to the OBM or the PM as their point of contact. So when you say level of responsibility, there is a level of responsibility for those tasks getting done, but then there's another level of responsibility for making sure they got done and got done correctly. And that's kind of where our roles lie.
Totally. So as you're listening in, let us know in the chat box, does this resonate with you? Do you have a different like perspective? Is this like what you've also seen in the industry? And yeah, let us know your thoughts around that too. So I want to chat a little bit about I mean, and I think we've kind of already answered this question, but should one person be doing it all? And when is the right time to invite in more support? So if you are working with a business owner and you are an online, if you're working with a business owner and you're an online business manager, an OBM, like when is the right time to recommend that the client brings in a PM? This was a big question we got. So Chelle, like what have
I'll
you?
answer that one because I think that this is what I see a lot, and it happens to me too. Someone will hire an online business manager, and then you get comfortable, you get into a rhythm, you know exactly how much you're dedicating to this person time wise, etc. And then they want to launch something. So then they come to the OBM and say, "Hey, so I want to launch this program, and can you just do that?" Well, sure, I could, but that's not my specialty. My specialty is actually keeping all of this going in a positive direction. So that's when you have to decide, are you going to be the PM as well? Because if you are, then you have to add on that time and investment to your services. And you have to really know if that's your zone of genius. It's not for me. So I will actually have that conversation with a client and say, great, so super excited about this launch. I'm not your girl. You need to really consider hiring someone that specializes in launches. Like they do it day in and day out. They know all of the things that you need to be doing, and they like have a plan that they can sort of like come in, take what you're doing and mold it into this beautiful plan and execute it without what I'm doing over here slacking, falling apart, or not happening because my focus has been shifted over to your launch. And that happens often where an OBM or a virtual assistant who is really doing more than what a virtual assistant does will get asked to do, and they'll say, sure, I can do that because it's more work. They'll take it on, and then the day-to-day functions start to kind of slither down the priority line. And certain things, business suffers because of that. So I think that should someone be doing all these things, after my years of experience of doing all the things and not doing all the things and working with a project manager, I would tend to say no. I think that people really need to stick in their zone of genius and need to be realistic with how much availability they have that they can give to a client. And then lastly, not saying, sure, I can do that. Let me increase some hours on here, but it's oftentimes that conversation never really happens. They just absorb it into what they're making into their retainer, and people don't get paid, hours don't get done, you're overextended, and things fall through the cracks. And I think it's just a recipe for disaster.
Yeah, and I've seen the same thing, and I think one idea that I've come up with for business, like for OBMs that also want to project manage, and or virtual assistants that like doing some of the implementation stuff but just have it within them that they just love project management as well, is that if you are working with a client, have them choose. So
Absolutely.
you could decide, like, I am the project manager for you, but I can't be a project manager and also your virtual assistant or your online business manager. If I am your online business manager, I can't also be your project manager because it's almost a conflict of interest in a way, for yourself and also for the person. And what I have found, when you bring that level of information, that level of confidence to the business owner, they respect you more.
Absolutely.
Because sometimes I know that it can be scary to say no, or not even to say no, but to to not be able to just like fulfill everything that the business owner needs. But when you're actually able to say, I don't think this is actually the most supportive to your business, let me make this recommendation. All of the sudden, they see you in the light of being a partner versus being another person on the team. And so if you do decide that you want to add project management to your service offerings, it's okay, because there may be some times where you do like managing, and there may be some times where you don't want to be managing new projects. But you can have the opportunity to choose and just set that rule with yourself that I will do one, but I'm not going to do both. Or you may realize that I don't want to manage launches. Like Chelle, you've been very clear on like that you prefer to be in the OBM role and functioning that and having your team focus there versus doing that and all of these projects too. And that's why Chelle and I will both like refer people to each other, because based on what it is that they need. So if someone came to me and said that they needed help getting their systems in place and set up, that they needed support with running the day-to-day operations of the business with financials and, you know, supporting inside of programs, I would refer them to Chelle and to her team, versus saying, I would never say yes. That was something that I realized, you know, yeah, no, I would absolutely not. And it's so funny because I have to say, like, when I first started my own business, I was the project manager. Like, I did not have a team. And the people I was talking to wanted implementation support. And for like a hot minute, I thought, wait a minute, do I have to become, what is an OBM? Do I need to become an OBM? And I looked and I'm like, nope. Like, and it's just not for me. And that's totally cool. And so I think one of the most important pieces here is to figure out, what is it that you like? Like, what do you love? What don't you love? And don't do the stuff that you don't love. And when you can be so self-aware about that and be able to communicate it to people in like a really like kind of respectful and also supportive way to your clients, it changes everything. Like, they really see you in a different way and you show up in a different way. So yeah. So Sabrina says, yes, I agree, Chelle. So yeah, we have a lot of like,
I liken it to a unicorn. Unicorns are magical creatures that just make magic. Unicorns have one horn. They do not have 3, 5, 10 horns. I have one horn. I am a unicorn at being an OBM and fixing problems. I don't do launches. And I think, you know, you would say the same thing. So that's my analogy for the day.
Yeah, I love that. I love the unicorn. And it's funny because sometimes when we help people hire, because we have project management as a service offering, but also hiring as a service offering, some people will say, I want a unicorn. And I'm like,
they have one horn.
Like, why do you want a unicorn? Right? Are you expecting 3 horns? Are you expecting 1 horn? Yeah. Right. So that's something that we dive into when we support people with hiring, to make sure that like their expectations are realistic, and to, you know, we're all human. And there's certain things that we are going to do really well. And there's going to be times where even when you bring on an online business manager or project manager, things are not going to work. Like, there's going to be challenges. You can't stop those things from happening. But it's really making sure that you have the right support on your team and you have the right people that are willing to step in and really be that brain for you. And it's easier to be a brain for someone when you have a focus and you have like the time and bandwidth to do that. And what Chelle, you were saying about like, if an online business manager agrees with the client to manage a project, and that it's really important to add that into your scope, not just, I mean, part of it is so that you're obviously compensated for what you're doing, but it's also more time, right? So if I've heard from a lot of people that it's like, oh, we're so busy with projects that like this stuff gets pushed to the wayside and doesn't get done because I'm focusing on that. And that's fine. And I also think it's a little bit of an excuse, because if it's something that you can't juggle and manage, make the recommendation to the client that they need to bring in somebody else. And I've been there too, where I'm like, but I have so much on my plate and da 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 da. It's like, okay, well then what actually needs to happen in order to change this for the better? And oftentimes it's having a conversation with a client. And if you're a business owner and you notice that something is happening inside of your business where you hear that, where it's like, wait, I'm trying to focus on this, and then this came up, ask the question, like, do we need more support, right? Ownership. It's ownership from the business owner and from the team. So Jackie says, this may have been answered. I came on late. It's all right, Jackie. So while there is a PM on board creating and managing the launch, will the OBM then manage the team during the launch steps as well as the day-to-day business side? So I will answer this. Yeah. So the project manager is responsible for the launch and the team that is on the launch project. Mm-hmm. So let's say it's a launch of a course, just to make it easy. So the project manager comes in, they understand, they plan out the project, they figure out who is going to be on the team. And so some of those team members may also be, like, let's say there's a designer on a team and they are creating social media graphics to help with the day-to-day business operation, right? Their social media channels, maybe the person has some groups where their social media posts, but that designer is also helping on the launch of the course. So they're creating an opt-in page, a sales page, that sort of thing. So that designer would report to the project manager for the project. And when it comes to the day-to-day business operations, would report to the online business manager. Now, this is where it's really important, if there is an online business manager and a project manager, that they actually talk so that they understand like what is going on and what the workload is for those team members so that it doesn't get wonky. And this is also where a really good project manager will have conversations with the team to say, okay, we're adding on this project, but like, how long does it take for you to do an opt-in page and a sales page? And this is all stuff that we go through inside of my program. Like, how do you actually plan out a project and a launch so that it works for, obviously, to get the project done on time, but also for the team to do it in a way that feels good and not super stressful. Now, sometimes things get stressful. Things happen, like I was saying before, but that's the project manager's role, is to really partner with the team members to understand that. And so what they may share is, oh, you know what, like, just to run the business, I'm creating 3 graphics every week. I'm doing this. So even though typically it would take me 5 days to create, or 2 days to create an opt-in page, I actually probably need more like 5. So that's where it's really important to be having these conversations, and where the difference between what the online business manager would be managing and the project manager. Chelle, did you want to add anything to that?
Well, I think that you covered it really well. Oh no, I hear an echo. Oh, it went away. Okay, so I think you covered it really well. I would say that the project manager is going to reach out to that graphic designer as an example. And if that graphic designer is already maxed out with just the day-to-day business stuff, they may tell them, I don't have any more capacity to work on the launch stuff. So then it becomes the project manager typically finding someone to fill that role, or working with the OBM to find someone to fill that role. And there, again, we get back to, they have to communicate. Because the last thing that a client ever wants to hear from either of those two roles when they're working together is, I thought you were doing this. I thought you were doing this. They have to communicate.
Exactly. And that's where, like, when you bring on a project manager, like as a client, a great project manager will talk about the launch team, because this is actually places where we have gotten into a problem in the past, because we've gotten onto a team and we've been told by the client that they have a team to support things. And then we get in there and realize that the team is like totally at capacity and that it will be absolutely impossible for us to do the launch within the time frame. And so there's certain ways, and this is something that I teach to the project management students that I mentor on, like, what questions do you need to ask the client in order to make sure that they have the dedicated people, and really set those expectations on the call before you're brought in to make sure that it's a good fit. Because oftentimes I will say to people that we talk to who want to bring in project managers, okay, tell me about your team. What are they doing? Now, this is probably going to add double the work to their plate for these 3 months. Is that something that they are contracted to do? Because the way that we operate is that we kind of expect the client or the business manager to make sure that they have the people that they need to do the job. We're happy to make referrals, but ultimately we want to make sure, especially if they already have a team, that that team has the bandwidth. Mm-hmm. And so what I will sometimes share are stories of when we've come in and it hasn't worked and why it's so important, so that we can get the information that we need to make sure that it even makes sense for us to come in and project manage. And there will be some times where clients will say yes, because either they're not quite sure what's happening in their business or whatever, and we get in there and it still doesn't work. But the earlier you can catch that, the better. And that's what we try to do through that planning process, is talk to the team members, so that if they're like, I'm at bandwidth, we can then have a conversation with the client to say, hey, actually, like, we may need to bring in another graphic designer or copywriter and that sort of thing. So Jackie says, thank you. The role has gotten muddled before with a past client, and the PM and I ended up managing all the people during all the phases. It was extra intense and definitely overextending everyone's scope of support. So one thing that I will mention is that when we come in for a project and for a launch, sometimes we look towards the business manager to manage like customer support, which we feel is like kind of a day-to-day business operations. Like, they already have SOPs in place for how to respond to things. So, that is sometimes one thing where we will kind of pass on that management to the current person who's in place because they've been doing it. But as far as like new roles and new requirements, the project manager would manage that. Shelley, do you feel the same way?
I do.
Okay. Excellent. Great. So Jackie says, yes, lack of communication can sink it all. Tasha says, love that. Do the stuff full. And so I know service providers who have the best intentions and come in and then start doing things that they don't love to do and then become really resentful. And it's really on us to shift that as service providers, so that we're able to sign on the right clients, we're able to be in the right roles, and that they also understand. Because part of why I wanted to do this, and Shelley, is that we really want to make sure that there's clarity and people are able to communicate this so that clients can be clear, team can be clear, and we can all be doing more of what it is that we love to do. Mm-hmm. So where shall we go next? So as you are listening in, please continue to ask questions. We love answering them. So maybe we could talk about what are some signs that somebody should be a project manager. Like, what are the qualities to look for if you are a client, like in your team members, if you're thinking, maybe this person would make a great project manager, or if you are a service provider and you've been thinking about offering this as more of a standalone service. So one thing that comes up for me is that project managers really have to know how to lead, and also how to troubleshoot situations and be able to communicate with multiple people, like almost be the liaison and the negotiator between the client and the team. Mm-hmm. So that's definitely something that I have found has been a little bit of a struggle for service providers coming in who are used to being like a taskmaster and used to like getting really excited about checking things off of a list, and then step into a project management role and all of a sudden have to be the ones that are leading conversations. And if the client is wanting to do something and it's not going to quite work with the team, to be the one to navigate and negotiate that. And it's a skill that can be developed. And it's part of the reason why I love mentoring project managers, is because I love mentoring people who want to step up into that leadership role. But I would say that if you are somebody, or you see somebody on your team that likes to contribute, that's kind of one of those people that are willing to have the conversations that need to be had to figure something out, like that is a sign of somebody who can step into a project management role. What do you think, Chelle, about that?
I think someone who can think outside the box, because I know that that's kind of cliche to say that, but working with you, what I've noticed is that there are times when you and I will have a conversation and my brain is thinking from more of an ongoing perspective, and I am not seeing how this problem is going to get solved. And you're like, well, what about, and you ask a lot of open-ended questions that can generate ideas on how to actually solve a problem and maybe not the most conventional way. And I think that having someone who can ask those questions, feels comfortable asking those questions, and wants to kind of navigate around the convention is a big, light bulb of this person could be a really good project manager, because you're always kind of trying to navigate through.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And I think like, to that point, the client may have, so it's the client's job to have like, and hold the vision, to be able to communicate that to the team. And ultimately what clients want is a result. So let's say you're in the middle of a launch and they kind of see the numbers and they're like, oh my gosh, well, we want more people in, or what would be most supportive? Like, let's try this and let's try this and let's try this and let's try this. And sometimes when you are in it, so you are either implementing or you are inside of the systems or you are inside of a sauna, like literally inside of a system, it can be overwhelming sometimes to think about adding anything else. And so the reason why I love, especially on these bigger projects, having somebody who is just focused in on management, it allows them to have the brain space to be able to actually think of outside of the box solutions, because they're not also responsible for like a gazillion other tasks that need to be done. And so I think that that can be a really big benefit for the team, because sometimes they're doing the work, and that, I mean, you have to do the implementation in order for something to get done. But to be able to have somebody on the team who can really think about, okay, ultimately the business owner wants more people inside of the program. So the reason why they have all of these ideas is because they want to have more people inside of the program. So like, what if instead of doing these 5 things, we picked one and then we delivered it in a way that was easier for the team to deliver? And so I find that like a lot of what project managers do is this like outside of the box thinking and like kind of this negotiation. And it's something that, maybe it's something that you feel like you were born with, like I know some people who it was like they were born to do sales. Like I had a friend when I was younger who would just like sell anything. It's like trying to sell me like cards and all of this stuff. And they would talk, and all of a sudden, like I had spent all of my allowance on something that I'm like, I don't even know what this is or what. Right? Like there's some people who are just like born with this natural ability to do things. And there's other people that it's a learned skill. It's something that comes with experience, that comes from partnering with the right mentors, having the right information, and just getting out there and practicing it. So I think that it is, it's definitely something that if you feel like maybe it's not as natural to you, it doesn't mean that it's not something that can't be learned, but ultimately like you have to have a want and desire to be in that leadership role. And when I talk to clients who are looking to promote people within, when it comes to project management or management, I always say like there's stuff that can be learned, but there has to be that passion and desire, because if you see that in them and they don't see that for themselves, that's where we're going to come up with a bit of a conflict.
And I can, here I can give you an example of a team that you and I worked on together, of something that came up, and in your role, you came up with the solution and I found the person to create the solution. we were both working on a client who had a massive launch, brand new website, brand new membership site, a huge masterclass with over 50 people involved. It was a very large launch. Mm-hmm. And while I was over here managing one-on-one clients, team members, and trying to manage the participants in this big masterclass, Nicole was over here managing this website getting done and this membership site and all the pieces and parts to this launch that was coming up really quickly. And I was familiar with the particular systems that they were using, but I wasn't involved in creating anything. But I kept seeing there's this disconnect. There's going to be this disconnect when people buy this to when they get it. There's going to be, I'm not seeing how this is going to work. And I wasn't in communication with all those team members because they were part of the launch. But I just kept seeing it. And one day I was so busy with what I was doing that I couldn't even think about it, but I knew it was going to be a problem. It was in the back of my mind. It's going to be a problem. And I remember being on this call and saying, has anyone thought about this thing? Because this thing I am foreseeing is going to be an issue. And I remember everybody on the call was like, I don't even really know what that is, or we need to solve this though. Like we need to test it and see if it's going to work. And we tested it and it didn't work. And do you remember we had to hire someone to come in for literally like 3 hours and fix this specific problem? Someone who had knew about how those systems would talk together. But I was so in the day-to-day business that I couldn't wrap my brain around. I didn't have the time to dedicate to it. It wasn't my responsibility. However, it was really nice to be able to come on to a call with a project manager and say, look, this is going to be a foreseeable problem. I don't know how to solve it, but it needs to be on somebody's radar. And to have someone from the outside who maybe didn't know the solution say, let's walk through the steps to identify, is this a problem? And then how are we going to solve it? Oh, we need to find someone to solve it. And now let's procure that person. Yes. This is a very big distinction between our roles on that team and how we work together to solve a problem.
Totally. And it was like, who was holding, once the problem and challenge was brought up, who was holding it? And it didn't have to be Chelle. It could be myself, the project manager, to say, oh, that's a really good point. Okay, let's do this, and this, and see what happens. And then the next step is this. And so being able to work with team members in that way is huge. And that's such a huge point, because in project managing and any form of working in a team environment, there is a point of having a team. Whether you're on the client side or on the team side, right? It's because everyone sees something different and everyone has a different expertise. And so a really great manager will listen, will kind of invite people to be able to share what's coming up for them so that they can actually figure out what's next, right? Because it's really bringing together people that see things differently and have ownership of different areas, but then having that point person to hold it all together.
Absolutely.
So yeah, that's I remember that so clearly. It feels like it was years ago. And I'm pretty sure it was this is online time. So it's last year feels like 3 years ago, but yeah. So, if you are somebody, I'd love to know, for the people who are here with us now and even listening to the replay, does project management sound interesting to you? If you are on the client side, does having a project manager on your team sound interesting to you? And also, I know we have a lot of service providers here. It is possible for service providers to also have project managers on their team, especially as you are growing your business. So how can you start incorporating this as a service provider. So let's say you are looking, maybe right now you're offering online business management services and you're looking to shift to project management services. Or maybe you do something completely different and you're not in the VA OBM realm, but maybe you're a graphic designer. I've trained graphic designers before and they've been great project managers. So how do you start incorporating this into your business? And so what I say, I'll talk about the service provider piece first, and then I'll talk on the client side as well if you're thinking about bringing in a PM. So as a service provider, what I recommend is that you start to get the knowledge that you need so that you get the competence that you need to go out and actually start doing this. And so for most people that I know, especially service providers, you want to gather information and you want to go through trainings so that ultimately you can go and tell somebody, hey, I can be a project manager on your team. I recommend pairing the knowledge with just getting started, but getting started in a smart way. And so we've talked about some of the ways that you can do that during the call today, where you could, maybe you have a client that comes to you and you have experience with them and you want to try and manage one of their projects. Make sure that you have the availability to do that. Make sure that it is inside or you add to your scope so that you can focus in on that. Start with the people that you know, that the people that are around you, and please get some sort of a mentor. So it's really important. I have a mentor. Chelle has a mentor. Yeah, we all have mentors, and it's important that you have that support going into a new service and skill offering. And also, so a lot.
Don't think that you have to jump in and do a big launch.
Mm-hmm.
You can start with small projects and work your way up. Doesn't mean that you have to start with small projects, but sometimes when people think of, oh, I want to do some project management, or I want to do be a project manager, and they'll go out and actually are good at selling and go out and sell and land a really big launch to start with. Start with something small. You could probably find a project with some of your current clients.
Absolutely. And the things that you can look for are, okay, what is a project I could get started on that's reasonable, that I have some knowledge about, where there are other team members that can implement this project. Mm-hmm. So this could be a small project. It can be maybe an opt-in page for a free offering. It could be, I don't know, what are some other ideas, Chelle? I'm trying to think of some other small projects. It could be an opt-in. It could be a small mini course. Mm-hmm. It could be, a lot of times business owners need support and maybe aren't at the point of investing in I don't want to say full-time project manager, but an ongoing project manager when they are first launching something. So they want it to be small. They want the ability to have flexibility. So I would start with something, to your point, Chelle, something small where there's other people to actually manage, because it is different when you are managing yourself and maybe one other person versus when you are only the manager and managing other people. It can be a little bit of a shift. So get started in that sense. Mm-hmm. And then as far as being on the client side, when does it make sense to incorporate a project manager? And this is something that we chatted about today as well. When you have a team in place and the business operations are going pretty well, but you're going to be launching things that are new, additional projects, consider bringing in a project manager. And you can start the same way. Start with one project, see how that goes, and then you could potentially move into a relationship where that person is managing more than one project for you too. So I want to chat a little bit about a program that I have that supports people when it comes to being project managers, whether it is something that you want to do inside of your own business, or if you are a client and want to train somebody on your team to be a project manager. So this is how this all started. I was a project manager and I was working with a lot of people. I got totally booked out. I started taking on team members, building up an agency, and we could not support everyone. So I felt really bad because I had a lot of people coming to me and I'm sorry. And they would ask, do you know of anyone else? And the one or two people I knew were also completely booked out.
Mm-hmm.
And I didn't feel comfortable recommending people that I didn't have experience with. And so one of the things that I absolutely love doing, because I had done it inside of my own business, is train project managers. I did it a little bit when I worked in my corporate job. I started doing it with my own team to deliver really great services to our clients. And I'm like, why don't I just try and do this for other people? And so that is how I created the program. You may have heard of it, maybe not. It's called Project Manage Like a CEO. And what it talks about is really walks you through the skill set that you need to be a project manager on a team. And I'm also very aware that you need to be able to make money too. So we have like a little module in there about how to actually do sales and really kind of make it as a project manager out there. So this is for people who already have clients, know the business side, and just really want to dial in on the skill set and how to plan out projects. And it's an art form. I'm called the project designer for a reason. It is an art. And so I teach that inside of the program, how to manage team members. There's a lot of different team members, a lot of different skill sets, a lot of different personality types. You may have some team members that really don't want to be doing what they're doing on the team, and there might be some conflict that comes up. What do you do in those situations? How do you show up? And also, how do you work with clients, right? We talked a lot about how to work with clients that have a bunch of new ideas and want to be doing all of the things. How do you negotiate with them to ultimately get them the result that they want that works with the rest of the team? And when you can do this, the client respects you, the team really respects you, and everyone will want to continue working together forever, which is actually how you have a business that's totally booked with consistent clients, is by delivering that top-notch service and then getting referrals from your clients who are like, this person's amazing, from other team members that say this person is amazing. And this is why the bulk of this course is so focused on delivering that high level of support. And then also some like tips on how to make it so that your clients want to work with you forever. And in that way, we talk about like having debrief meetings and figuring out what went well, what didn't go well, what do we need to change, what's happening next. And all of those things, clients just really love and appreciate. And if you're a client on here looking at this, how awesome would it be to have somebody on the team that could handle this for you? Because maybe you're great at managing and maybe you just don't have the bandwidth for it anymore because you need to be doing other things like selling, creating content, that sort of thing. Or maybe you suck at it. And it's totally cool. Like I talk to people all the time and they're just like, I'm not good at managing, and that's okay, right? We all have our zone of genius and managing might not be yours. And so how awesome would it be to have a partner on your team that would be able to take over some of these projects for you? So I want to share with you, Chelle and I were kind of chatting because we wanted to do something special for people who were so kind to show up for this webinar and conversation. And so we came up with something pretty cool, which I'm like super excited about. So if you are a client that wants to buy this for a team member, we've got you. I'm creating a Facebook group, support group, to walk you through the transition of having a project manager on your team and providing support around what needs to happen in order to really hand that over well. And so that is what you get if you decide to buy this for a team member. If you are somebody who wants to purchase this for yourself because you want to learn the skills, maybe you're already a project manager, but you want to be able to be involved in other projects, know that there's more to learn, and there's always more to learn. I want to be able to support you in that sense too. And so I have a Facebook group that's specifically for team members to support them when it comes to everything, when it comes to managing projects, when it comes to working with clients, working with other team members, anything that might come up to really support the team. So you can check out everything that's included inside of this program. And I'm sure if you're here, you like details. If you are, somebody who likes to manage. And so we have a page that you can go to and learn more about that. There are 6 modules in there. It's broken up. It's a mixture of video, and I have scripts that you can use to make things really easy.
My turn to talk here.
Okay.
Okay, so you might be wondering why, if we're talking about Nicole's program, why is Chelle on here? So besides the beautiful background and the second beautiful face to complement the beautiful face sitting next to me, as a colleague, I have actually walked through Nicole's program, and I've worked closely with her for a bunch of projects and on several clients. What I can say about this program is that not only does she teach how, but she gives you the resources. There are resources you can download and use in your business inside of this program. So you don't learn how, but not have the actual tools to do it, which I think is key. You are very generous with all of the tools and spreadsheets and documents inside of this that are downloadable and customizable to someone else's business in this program. It's amazing to me. The other thing is, I've been the online business manager on businesses where I've actually negotiated for a client to pay for a team member to go through this program because I saw the potential of this person to take on just projects based on what they were doing already in this person's business. And it's amazing when those people go through the program and implement the skills and the tools and resources, and then the client comes back to me to say, that was worth it. That was worth it. So that's why I'm on here, not only to, answer questions and talk about, have a great discussion, but really I've been through it. I've walked through it. I've seen it. I've seen it in action, working with her and working with her team members. And there's nothing else like it out there. Mm-hmm.
Thank you. Yeah. And I'm glad you said that because I wanted, it's so funny because a lot of people have been through the program, and I'm starting to remember, I remember all of the things that they've shared. And when it comes to what's included, we really walk you through, from the moment you get the client, an onboarding process. And the onboarding process, I've actually shared with even people that aren't project managers, it is actually great in any service-based business. The onboarding process that we go through, I've had people who have downloaded the example client intake forms that we have and send it to a client the next day. Yeah. And these are all resources that my team also uses. I use, if I have a challenge that I'm working on in my business, I will go back and say, I have a module on this. Let's go through this. Anyone who's inside of my agency as a project manager has gone through this program as well. Sabrina says the program is amazing.
It is. Oh my gosh. Thank you, Sabrina. It is.
Yeah. So we want to make this available to you, whether you are a team member looking to do this for yourself, whether you're a business owner. If you know of anyone and you're like, this would be so perfect for them, please share this, whether it be a client or another service provider that you know, because ultimately what we're trying to do is allow people to do more of what they love, allow people to step up, and also kind of challenge themselves a little bit to learn something new and be empowered and have these conversations with other clients. So Jackie says, I took it over the winter and it has changed the way I manage and plan as both a project manager and an OBM. Awesome, Jackie. Thank you. So we have this bonus for you, and we're offering it for 72 hours, where if you sign up for the program, you will get access for each of these Facebook groups where you can get support from me when it comes to either implementing this as a service in your business or as a client, getting the support that you need to work with a project manager. And it's so important. I've seen business owners who have brought on team members, and the team members have been amazing, and it hasn't worked. And it's because there is an onboarding process that needs to happen. There's a shift that needs to happen. And it's really empowering people to step up into the leadership role and changing the way that they lead and manage their team. And it's different when you're working with a manager versus when you're working with other types of team members. So I want it to be really easy and supportive for you and the person that you're bringing on. So we have a special URL that we'd like to share with you that actually gives you access to this bonus for 72 hours. It is now Wednesday at 4 p.m. Eastern time, and this will disappear on Saturday at 4 p.m. Eastern time. So if you are interested, or if you know of anyone who may be interested in this, please share and encourage them to take advantage of this. This is also our early bird pricing. Of it's either $9.97 or 3 payments of $347. At the end of the 72 hours, it goes up to the full price of $12.97 or 3 payments of $497. So this is kind of the time to get in and take advantage of both the early bird pricing and also the special bonuses too. So Chelle, would you like to share the URL to sign up?
Oh, wow. It's chelleweech.com/PM training.
Perfect. So I'm going to put that inside of the chat box, I think. Let's see.
Yay. Oh, you did it. I see it.
Awesome.
Awesome.
All right.
And if you have any questions after you get off of this, whether it's the replay or with us right now live, please feel free to email either of us. We'll be happy to answer your questions.
This
has been fun.
I know. This is cool.
We do this more often.
I know. It's so true. And it's, it's pretty amazing because this is what we love, obviously. I think that it is, I was just talking about the other day, like I was explaining what I did to somebody over dinner and I almost started crying.
Aww.
And when I start crying, you know that like it's something that like is really happening and going on. And because it really is like such a pleasure to be able to support people in stepping up and being a leader, being a better manager. And I think it really affects like every aspect of your life too. So if you are interested in this, like please sign up, please share. You can use Chelle's URL that she put inside of I put inside of the chat box, I think. Do you want to say that one more time, Chelle?
It's Chelle Weech, so it's ChelleWeech.com/PM training.
Perfect. And like Chelle said, if you have any questions for us, we will be around. So you can message us and let us know. And I would love to see you inside of the program. I would love to support either you, if you're a client, team member, or anyone that you know as well. And Sabrina says, just wanted to say both of you ladies are amazing and have been so influential to my business and growth.
Thank you.
Sabrina. We love you.
Yeah.
All right, everyone. Well, this has been a blast as we expected and promised. And thank you all who showed up live. For those of you that are watching the replay, make sure to take advantage of this. It expires Saturday, late afternoon. And we will see you all probably very soon. Have a great Wednesday.
Bye.
Bye.